Hello everybody, welcome along. This session was meant to be face-to-face. However, from the feedback that we had regarding parents not being able to make it and a few other unforeseen circumstances, what I thought best was to record the session, send it out to you all, and then you can view it whenever you want to. As you'll see from the background, I'm not at school. It's Sunday morning and I'm at home, therefore we could have interruptions from the dog, the children. I'm hoping not. I'm hoping for a fairly smooth session. And in the background, what you can see is Christmas lights, even though it is January the 22nd. That tells you how things are going around here. Today, we're going to look at the Ofsted feedback. And very simply, we're going to do it in three ways, looking at where we were, where we are, and of course, where we're going. We've been focused on 5 key areas across schools since April, when Ofsted visited, and they have been behaviour and culture, SEND, so special educational needs, early years, which is our nursery and reception, reading and attendance. And when we get the Ofsted reports, they can be full of quite ambiguous words, quite confusing vocabulary. And today is a chance for me just to go through what that means for us as a school and what it means, of course, for the children at our school. The first area is behaviour. In April, needless to say, behaviour was very unsettled. A lot of the kids said they couldn't get on with their learning because of behaviour. There was too much poor behaviour. And it was quite sad that children reflected that rudeness, swearing, name calling are the norm. And the expectations around behaviour just weren't high enough. Where we are now, following about 100 days between Ofsted inspections, is we have expectations that are much higher for behaviour and effective systems in place to support positive behaviour. Ofsted reflected that the kids knew the reward system well, so they want to be stars. They also know that if they drop down to the cloud or the thundercloud, there are consequences that happen because of it. And I was really pleased that Ofsted summarised that has resulted in significantly improved pupil behaviour. And I see it and I feel it across school. What is next for behaviour is just to continue to be consistent in how we employ that behaviour policy and make sure that we support staff in the confidence in using that policy. And I'll touch upon that in a little while as well. You might be thinking, well, actually, that's all good and well, but what does it mean for my child? What it means is this. Firstly, they're safer than they were before. Secondly, they are supported to behave well. Thirdly, they see less poor behaviour. Fourth, they have more settled environments, which of course leads to better learning. And lastly, they are rewarded for their behaviour. And I've been really proud of the way the children have responded to the new behaviour policy, the way they've responded to the stars and the clouds, and they're aware of what their consequences are if they do something wrong. Special educational needs came under some criticism from Ofsted in April. And quite bluntly, looking at that red box, Ofsted concluded that SEND children do not receive an acceptable standard of education. They don't have full access to the curriculum, and there's not a curriculum in place for them, and that they do not achieve well. And therefore, the work across school to address those issues has been substantial, and it's been hard work. However, I'm really proud that come November last year, Ofsted saw that those children who had SEND needs who weren't in their classroom have been reintegrated. And it's a really positive line in the report that it says those children are now thriving. It takes an awful lot of work to get the word thriving into an Ofsted report, and I'm desperately proud of our staff for that. It means that those children are now making progress. It means that they're now accessing the full curriculum, and it means they're doing the same thing as their peers. And also, we've changed our approach to our nurture rooms, where some of those children were spending most of their school week. And we now have a set of SEMH, so mental health interventions to support children on that real bespoke level, small groups, targeted support. And I'm really happy with the work done in the Rainbow and Magic Room too. Moving forward, what we need to do is now have the best approaches possible in the classroom. Now those children are back in the classrooms, I need to make sure that our staff have got the best approaches possible, the most effective provisions possible for every SEND child. Again, you might be thinking that's all good and well, what does it mean for our SEND children? Well, it means they get the same offer as a non-SEN child. It means they're in class, they're being taught by their adults, and it means that they are supported better than they were before. And again, I'm really proud to say that is the case in our school. Early years is where we've seen the most change. When Ofsted came in April, we didn't have a curriculum in place. The children weren't ready for year one, and therefore there needs to be real change in early years. And I'm proud of our early years staff because the curriculum now has been completely overhauled. There's a curriculum that is embedded, it's supported, and therefore the children are ready for year one. And I can tell you that already just a term in, how much of a different atmosphere and a different environment it is in our early years. The routines are good, the expectations are high, and therefore the children demonstrate positive behaviours. What's next for early years is to give it time to embed now. We've done all of those changes, we've gone through all of those processes. We now need to give it the time to have a maximum impact that it can. That means for our early years children that the learning now starts in early years, doesn't start in year one. It means that they're ready for year one, and it means that they learn to read quicker. And I'm going to touch upon reading too. When Ofsted came in April last year, we didn't have, by their judgment, an effective reading curriculum. The training for staff wasn't quite as strong as it needed to be. The new phonics programme hadn't yet been embedded. The books that the kids were reading were not always matched to the correct level that they were at, and therefore our children were not making enough progress in reading. Where we are now is that we've invested really heavily in training, so staff are more confident in teaching phonics. We have better consistency in the delivery of the phonics programme, and that's Little Wandle. I know lots of you attended a meeting with Miss McCann last week, and thank you for attending that. Where we've got those consistencies, it's quick, it's pacey, it's snappy, and therefore it leads to good progress. And I was really proud that every child that was heard reading by the Ofsted inspector in November had the correct leveled book. That's a big piece of work, so well done to all the staff for that. What's next is further training to continue that progress, to make sure that we close the gaps in any children who aren't doing as well in phonics or reading. And under the Little Wandle scheme, it's called Catch Up or Keep Up. And we need to make sure that we address those gaps for SEND children too. For the children at Roman Hill, it means that their adults are trained better to teach reading, and it means that our structures for phonics, and then of course reading when they get older, are better and they're more consistent. The last of those 5 key areas was attendance. Attendance has been historically low because of COVID, and it's a real shift of school telling parents and carers in the community to keep your children at home when they're poorly, to bring them in if they're poorly. And there's still a level of worry, a level of confusion, and therefore, Miss Adams is working exceptionally hard to make sure that her messages are consistent. But now we've got to drive forward attendance. I don't need to tell you how important attendance is. If the children aren't at school, they're not with their friends, they're not learning. And in April, we had a big group of children that had low attendance. What we have now is a real expectations raised around attendance. It's not where we want it to be just yet, but it's improving. We focused on making sure that everybody buys into attendance through rewards and celebrations, but equally, of course, that also means there are consequences and sanctions to not being here, and this may well be being listened to by parents and members of the community that have had fixed penalty notices. I understand they can be frustrating. We had a lot of lates, a lot of children arriving late, but that's been reduced as well. Again, we still have some, but Miss Adams is working closely with those families. To move forward with attendance, Ofsted coined the phrase of taking swift and effective action, and that is largely supportive. And I pride ourselves on the fact that our approaches are supportive. We haven't got a big stick to beat parents and the members of the community with. We'll bend over backwards for these children and for you, and we'll continue to do so. Again, what it means is that attendance is more important than before. It is celebrated, but it is also challenged. You would have all been asked to fill out a feedback form, and the feedback we got in November's Ofsted was so much more positive than April's Ofsted, and I understand why, looking at the progress that's been made. And there's 3 quotes there that I shared with staff. Staff have worked so hard to make changes to support my child. I can honestly say I would not want my child to go anywhere else. and the recognition the school gives children is amazing. So if you're listening to this and that was you, thank you. It's those sort of quotes that can pick someone up when they're feeling down, that can give people the energy to continue to do this hard work, because working in schools is harder than it's ever been before. So thank you again. The big question is, what next? Because the report of November's Ofsted just becomes the new ground zero, the new low, the new foundation, the new building block. In regards to behaviour and culture, the first of those key areas, we launched this side of Christmas, the Every Child Will. Our 5 school rules, or our 5 school expectations, are respect, responsibility, kindness, perseverance, and honesty. And underneath each of those are a set of aspirations for our children. And this effectively becomes our culture. This becomes what we want from every single child. There's also an every staff member at Roman Hill Primary School will, and that's a set of expectations for staff. There's also an every parent or carer of a Roman Hill Primary School child will. Again, a set of expectations for parents, which went out in the newsletter just after Christmas. What we want to do is get every child to this point where they are fully respectful. They take full responsibility. They are always kind. They always persevere, and they are always honest. Changing a culture of a school takes years, and we're only, a few months into that long journey, and it will be the hardest part of our journey. But this is what we want every child to be able to do, and this is the conversation that staff will be having with children if they do drop below those standards. Also, in regards to behaviour and culture, this term, so from Christmas through to Easter, our focus is cracking down on internal truancy. Internal truancy is when a child leaves the classroom but doesn't leave the school site. And in between those two places, they're not doing what they should be. And therefore, we have a brand new policy, a brand new protocol to make sure that children are aware that just being in school and not following instructions isn't okay. It's not okay. And we'll continue to review our consequences and our rewards. So each half term, we have different rewards for those children getting onto the STAR. We've looked back at all those children that have got onto the STAR before but haven't been pulled out of the raffle for the prize. And what we want to move towards is to continue the raffle. But also, if you get a certain amount of stars, you join the weekly reward. Because some children have been on the STAR 20, 30, 40 times and are not yet being rewarded for that. I want to make sure that every child gets that fair reward. For SEND children, we need to make sure that our support in class, as I mentioned earlier, is spot on for every SEND child. And that looks very, very different depending on what the SEND need is. And I talk from the heart when it comes to SEND. I have an 8-year-old child at home who is severely autistic, who has an EHCP, and therefore I'm almost, shoes in the feet in the other shoes, in that I'm a parent of an SEND child too. And therefore the support, the package of support looks very, very different based on that individual need. It could be around emotions and therefore the zones of regulation work that we do. It could be around mental health, sensory needs. It could be something as simple as a pencil grip to help with handwriting, or brain breaks for those children who've got a little bit more energy than the others. We need to make sure that for every SEND child, their bespoke support package fits their needs. And we're so close to that now. For early years, we now just need a little bit of time to be consistent. Like I said before, we've seen an immense amount of change in early years, and year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6 will feel the benefit of those changes for years to come. All we need now is to make sure that we are consistent and we embed that routine. For reading, this is an area where we still need to do quite a bit of work. We still need to invest in training. We still need to be more consistent in terms of every lesson being pacey and snappy, and therefore resulting in good progress. We need to look at our structures for reading to make sure that when the children have got through the phonics program, there's a good transition into guided reading and learning how to comprehend, so how to understand text. And then we need to make sure for those children that don't quite get to where they need to be for phonics, there's a good process for the catch-up or the keep-up interventions that they need to help them. And for attendance, as I said before, Ofsted coined the phrase swift and effective action, and that's what we need to do. Most of that will be supportive, And as I said, our staff will bend over backwards to support you as families, and please call upon them for that. But also there's the other side of consequences for non-attendance. And if you need more information on that, it is all on the website under the policy. You could help us in this journey too. Firstly, reading at home is desperately important. If you can read at home with your child, if you can listen to them read or read to them as much as possible, that helps us in school to process them through that phonics program quicker. Sounds like a production line, doesn't it, saying process them through, but it's not. And to help them read at an age appropriate level. The every child will vocabulary is really important. Those expectations and those rules, those aspirations we have for our children. If you can use the 5 school rules within the home, if you can use those sentences or those aspirations, it makes it much easier for us to embed that process, to embed those words, to embed that vocabulary. And it's the same with the zones of regulation. We'll talk about the children feeling green when they're happy. We'll talk about the children feeling yellow if they get a little bit wobbly. We will talk about the children feeling blue if they're sad, they're tired, they're unsure, they're worried. And of course, we also talk about the children feeling red if they're feeling angry or scared. And therefore, please use that vocabulary. And if you need any of the resources, just ask your class teacher, ask Miss Clark Arsenko, and we'll send them home to you. And I'm going to also include a shameless plug here for the school committee. If you do want to be part of that process of change, if you do want to know more, if you do want to have a real voice for the parent community, please inquire about joining the school committee. We always want members of the community on there. It helps me to understand the views of parents, but it also would help you to have an insight into what happens in school. To summarise, I guess Roman Hill is better than what it was, but it's nowhere near as good as it will be in the future. And I really value the fact that this is our new low, if you like, it's our new foundation. And therefore Ofsted, when they come back, which will probably be before summer, we'll see a very different school in the summer term to what they see now. And that will be a very, very different school to what they would have seen last April. And please keep communicating with us. We're here to support with anything from health to financial troubles, learning in classrooms, sporting clubs, anything you need to talk to us about, we are here. So please use those channels and we will listen and take that on board. So all that's left for me to say is thank you for spending a short amount of time listening to this presentation. Apologies it wasn't face-to-face, but I'm sure you've been highly entertained by the Christmas lights over my shoulders. Any questions, queries, feedback or comments, like I said, our ears are open to those. So please come and find us and let us know. Thank you. And enjoy the rest of your day. If you're watching this in the morning, enjoy your sleep. If you're watching this in the evening, thank you again.